Why don't you start? I'll get you in a sec.
Okay.
All right. Hello. Hello, we're going to start right now. Thank you. Hello, everyone. PRC members.
Folks, we're going to be starting soon.
Thank you for getting quiet. Hello. Hello, everyone. Hello.
Yeah, they're gonna have.
Norm, are you coming or going?
Half as many people stick around at Madison, which is good.
Good, yeah.
Thank you very much. So we're gonna start with the final presentation. You can also do it. You can also do it manually. Muggsy.
I think you have to
How many units are we doing? 17?
Yeah.
I mean, my mind is like
I don't-
not been in it. You know, I gotta like
We have a clicker.
fit in
Just-
Cleveland.
Someone has to sit there.
I show you the pictures.
Let me-
I was joking.
Hey, Joe. Joe. Can you get Joe?
That's rush hour.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Oh my God.
And you know what's worse?
We're going to get started.
Constant traffic jams.
Hello. Hello.
So we take a picture that's just prove my point when I go back. It's scary, man. It's scary.
I've spent enough time there to realize it's not that there isn't any traffic, it's that it's really dispersed. Well, that's true for the whole downtown. It's like real dispersed. And so it's just, you know,
Thank you very much, everyone. We're going to start right now. What we're going to focus on right now.
Oh, these are.
Hello, everyone. Quiet, please. Thank you. Luis Alicia.
Barely here.
Hello.
John, speak up.
Thank you very much.
Speak up, John.
Hello. Thank you for being respectful to the development team that has applied for 7581 Dudley Street. This is the second of the two sites that we're reviewing today. And again, just a quick reminder, we're going to be back here next week for two sites, 2441 Washington Street and 40-50 Warren. Same place, same time, same great presentations. The applicant to this site is Madison Park Development Corporation. It's a 6,170 square foot parcel. It's right on the corner of Dudley and Shawmut. I'm going to introduce Madison Park Development Corporation right now. They will have the 15-minute presentation. We'll follow it with comments and questions. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Jean Pinato, and I'm the CEO of Madison Park Development Corporation, and I'm here presenting today with Greg Minot, a principal with Dream Collaborative. They're the architect on this project. Madison Park was formed in 1966, so we've had over 52 years of experience owning and developing multifamily housing here in Roxbury. We have a diverse staff of 36 full-time professionals. We've developed 117 homes for first-time home buyers and operate over 1,200 mixed-income rental apartments. We also own and operate 2 commercial buildings in Dudley Square. Hopefully you've had a chance to go to an event at Hibernian Hall or shop at Daily Table. They're the tenant in our ground floor 2201 Washington Street building. At 7581 Dudley Street, we're proposing to build a 4-story building that will provide 17 condominium units. We actually are under construction with the building next to it. So 75 Dudley is the building to your right. Under construction is the building to the left. That building is at 2451 Washington Street. So in the building that we're talking about, 75 Dudley Street, it will have 17 condominium units, all affordable to moderate income families, a ground floor residential lobby, and a commercial space to a commercial condominium for retail. We also thought a lot about diversity and inclusion, and both projects really are a nice complement of each other. They both, combining the two lots, the two buildings, we're combining lots and sharing some of the land, and the two together make a nice open space for the residents who live in that building, and they frame that Edward Gourdine Park in a really nice way. So consistent with our community economic development mission, we're fully committed to diversity and inclusion in our real estate and all of our other efforts. Our team is diverse. Madison Park is actually a state certified MBE. Dream Collaborative, which is our architect, you'll hear from Greg in a minute, is also a minority business enterprise. Alicia Toney is a construction representative. She'll be working on she's working on 2451 now, and will work on this project. She's a WMBE. During construction, we'll select a general contractor, certainly reach out to the minority GCs in the area, but require whoever that contractor is, require them to have at least 35% minority business subcontracting and 10% WBE, and meet and exceed the Boston residents' job policy goals. And we do this on all of our projects. We've also thought a little bit about anti-displacement strategy. So this is a vacant parcel. We're not displacing anyone with the development, but the neighborhood is undergoing gentrification and displacement. And we're going to work with city agencies. I know the BPDA and the city are also looking to create a preference in neighborhoods where people are at risk of displacement. We'll also work with other developers, other housing advocates, community groups, perhaps an academic institution, and put together the data that determines probably citywide which neighborhoods are at risk of displacement and gentrification, and through that provide the rationale, if you will, for an anti-displacement policy, which would give people living in those neighborhoods preference to buy at this site. And that will, I think, again, help us begin to address the disparities that exist today from governmental policies that have resulted in discrimination and redlining and led to a huge wealth gap in our community, a racial wealth gap. So if you turn to the back page of your handouts, I can show you a quick chart about the sales prices and the affordability. We have 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. I don't have time to go through this whole chart, but you can see that the condominiums will sell for a range of $182,000 to $320,100. With the city's down payment assistance program, a 1-bedroom condo is affordable to a household making as low as $45,000 a year. And at the other end of the spectrum, a household can make up to $107,800 and meet the income guidelines for a 3-bedroom condo. So I'm happy to take questions during Q&A on that. There are other projects in the neighborhood that we've developed. We've renovated the next door building on Kenilworth Street. That was a Boston Public School and is now a historic renovation. One of the many buildings that Madison Park has added to the National Register of Historic Places here in Boston. Also, we did for sale housing on Highland and Fulda Streets, and we did for sale housing on Dudley and Eustace Street, sort of near Orchard Gardens, project we called 20 at Luma, that took advantage of solar panels. I'm going to turn this over next to Greg. He's going to talk a little bit about the design.
Thank you, Jean. Good afternoon, everyone. Greg Reminer, principal of Dream Collaborative. Since our inception, just over 10 years, we've done a lot of residential projects in the neighborhood and worked with many of you, and we're happy to present this proposal to you this morning or this afternoon. So the site in the orange outline, 7581 Dudley, is at sort of the confluence of a lot of different uses. We have large-scale commercial adjacent to us, and then north of the slide there, you're seeing smaller residential and neighborhood services. So The use of the site is primarily residential, and you'll see in the design how we try to sort of knit those two sort of scales of neighborhood together through the design. So as Jean mentioned, we do have a site strategy that involves assembling a few different sites. 2451 Washington Street is currently under construction. That's the site there to the left, and then the light blue shaded areas is parcels that Madison Park currently owns, and we're using those sites to enlarge the city-owned parcel 7581 Dudley to create a larger parcel that you can see in the proposed property line there, so that we can fit the programmed amount of residential units and parking. So the proposal in the, to the right, went through several different options to come up with what we have. We looked at townhouses, smaller scale townhouses, but we wanted to be really responsive to the requirements of the RFP, and came up with a massing approach that's a 4-story single building that respects the existing 2451 building to the left. It fronts onto the Veterans Memorial Park in a way that creates and reinforces an edge and a backdrop for that park, and from the residential building creates eyes to activate that park. We're also, from a massing strategy, creating vertical slots in the building to sort of break down the scale to respect the neighborhood context that's around us. We're also creating a sustainable building, LEED certifiable building, and we're using several passive energy strategies, energy efficient lighting, a very tight building envelope. We're having indoor bike storage for alternate means of transportation, using durable materials and energy efficient windows and things of that nature. As Jean said, we are building next to 2451 Washington Street, and this current proposal is complementary to that. It's not a copy, but it's certainly complementary in height and scale, and it's also in scale with 6 Kenilworth. That's adjacent to it, and the neighboring row houses further up the street. On the ground floor, we are showing an active ground floor use. The corner of the building is anchored by commercial retail use. We also have the primary entrance to the building, sort of flanking that shared public space that's between 2451 to the left and 7581 to the right. And we have the 2 entrances for the building on that corner. And to the rear, you'll see that shared public amenity, shared amenity between the 2 residential buildings. It will be private to them, but it'd be visible from the sidewalk. We are screening the parking so that you're entering off of Dudley Street, and the massing of the building is hiding the parking, so you won't be able to see that from the street. We have 17 units of housing. That's a various mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. Most of the units are corner units, so they have more than 1 exposure, which sort of be very cheery and bright units. It's an elevator building, and we'll have all the modern amenities of a modern condominium buildings, washer and dryers in the units, and things of that nature. This is a view between the 2 buildings, 2451 on the left and 75 on the right, and you're having a view into that sort of private courtyard for the residents. And just back out, this is a perspective of the building looking across the park. So we're using durable materials, brick on the base of the building, and above we're using high-density fiber cement. And we have balconies for each of the units, and very large windows, so there would be ample daylight in each of the units. I'll turn it over back to Jean. Thank you.
I think we're ready for Q&A. I think we get some extra brownie points, right?
Wow. 2 gold stars. Thank you, Madison Park, for the presentation and keeping it within the time. So we have some comment and questions. Yep. I can repeat it here, or else you can come up. So yes. The question has to do with traffic flow, overwhelming traffic flow, B2, multiple uses, and the question is how can you manage that with this proposed development? And there's a question, I believe, whether there's a red light or something like that. It doesn't have to be or standard traffic light. Yeah. It's almost similar to what the fire department has. Okay.
Well, as probably many of you know, BTD, Boston Transportation, is working on a redesign of Dudley Street. They're going to actually start construction on the first phase near the library in the next couple of months. And so there's still time for community process on the rest of Dudley Street. And certainly our traffic engineers, Howard Stein Hudson, is experienced at looking at the sort of the traffic impact of new development.
Hussein, why don't you come up? Luis, we got you next.
My question will be, you mentioned community displacement and how that will be applied to the new property. And all of them you say home ownership, and is there a preference for Roxbury residents, or it will be like any other lottery that anybody in the city can apply? And follow-up question will be in terms of for the commercial space, are they the same preference for the Roxbury residents, or it be everybody? And is there a subsidy for that? Thank you.
Great. I'm going to let some of my team members, I'm going to let Dwayne answer the commercial condo question, and maybe Russ Tanner. Well, let me talk a little bit about the displacement strategy, because the city is already working on such a thing, right? Such a way for us to, when we do new development, we obviously have to follow fair housing guidelines and put together a fair housing plan. And we're regulations by HUD and other governmental entities. But there is a way, we've seen it in other cities, where they actually have, put together a case that actually meets fair housing standards that says there are people in certain neighborhoods of the city that are at risk of having to move because of gentrification and displacement. And we're hoping that we can take some of the models from other cities and work with the City of Boston agencies. I think they want to do this and work with probably an academic institution to put together the data that you need to do to make that case. And then the people who then go into the lottery, because there will be a lottery for these units, well, if you live in those neighborhoods at risk of displacement, you'll have an advantage. And it probably wouldn't be, they probably wouldn't let you do it for all of the units. It probably would have to be, some subset of all the units. But that's our thinking, and again, it needs more of a citywide look and a little bit of an academic approach.
Dwayne, do you want to follow up?
And Dwayne's going to follow up on the commercial condo. I think that was the question, right?
Okay. So if I understand you correctly, so the commercial condo is about 750 square feet, and our community benefits plan includes providing some assistance to build out that space. So we're providing about $40,000 to help with the build out of the space. And again, it's a condo, so there's an opportunity for ownership for that condo.
Luis, you have a question when you come up? And then we're going to come to Brian, and then we're going to go right back there to Kai.
The first question is on the economic benefits in terms of whether or not the 35% minority is a commitment. Is that a basement or is that the ceiling? And 10% WMBE, given that we're in a community that's 70% people of color, is there a solid commitment for 35% for the construction companies? The other question would be the percentage of utilization for the development of this project. What percentage was minority? And finally, what is the square footage for the 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units?
Okay, all right, I'm going to divide that up. So Katrina Conrad, I'm going to let her answer the question about MBE utilization and hiring, and the commercial condo to Greg. Okay.
The 2-bedroom
Or the 2-bedroom unit square footage to Greg.
Who first?
You, Katrina, why don't you go first?
Good morning, everyone. Katrina Conrad, Workforce Diversity Project Manager for Madison Park Development. So we are forever committed to having 35% of minority-owned business or contractors, rather, work on this particular project. That is a commitment that we have dedicated for all of our projects, as a matter of fact, here at Madison Park Development. As far as women-owned businesses, we're looking for 10% at minimum to participate on this particular project. Now, of course, we are all recognizing the BRJP standards under the new ordinance, so we are hoping to exceed 51% Boston resident participation, 51% people of color, and 12% women on this particular project. Thank you.
Two-bed, yes. So there's the 2 bedrooms range. As you can see, it's a very unique geometry for the floor plan. So there's a range of 2-bedroom sizes from anywhere from low 800s to around 900 square feet. Right. And of course, the 1s are smaller, and the 3s would be larger than that.
Thank you. We're going to go to Brian and Kai, right? Okay, so, and then...
Can you speak to your commitment to the retail spaces along Dudley that are currently vacant? I know that there's a lot of spaces that have been vacant for at least 5 years. Additionally, a proposed restaurateur came to me recently and said that you were very unwilling to work with him, and he wanted to move into one of your spaces in Roxbury, and he's now moving to Dorchester. Not living there, but moving his retail space to Dorchester. That was an opportunity that could have been here. Can you speak to your commitment to, bringing in local minority-owned businesses to this neighborhood?
Sure, thank you. All of our commercial buildings, except for one space in the 9 Williams building, the old Tropical building, are occupied, so we don't have any other vacant space. That's the newest building we've developed. So in our 2201 Washington Street building, that building, it has a Daily Table on the ground floor and Best, which is doing job training for hospitality industry. And we purposely have said no to chiropractors and beauty supply and dollar stores. And sometimes we have left space vacant because the kinds of uses that were coming to us weren't the kind of things that we thought we needed in this community to sort of move us forward. So there have been times when they're vacant, but the Bain building, 2201 Washington, was right there in the middle, has been full for a while now. I think people do come and talk about different ideas. I think for that particular restaurant there, the thing that ended up being the deal breaker was the capacity. So we have an agreement with Tropical Foods about how many seats a restaurant can have at that building because they share the parking. And they're our partner in the project, and we have restrictions. And so that was what the deal breaker was on that particular deal, the capacity. They needed a larger capacity than the site could accommodate. No, sorry.
The question is, isn't there a commercial space along Dudley there?
No, there's another building, we call it Dudley Greenville, and the ground floor spaces are full in that site as well. Hibernian Hall is full as well.
We're going to go to Kai. We're going to have Rodney come over here.
So my name is Kai Grant. I'm a long-term Roxbury resident. We're also business owners, but we also represent and have founded John Elliott Square Neighborhood Association. We had the pleasure of 2 developers coming before us this past Tuesday. We had about 50 community members and stakeholders that were present. The 2 developers that came before us were Madison Park Development Corporation and Canton Corporation, Fred Fairfield, both of which have projects that will abut each other. And we look at things comprehensively in our neighborhood, and we also are very concerned about things that will impact us generationally. So I just wanted to report out to my community and let folks know, you know, the Canton Corp came before us. They have 175 units that they're proposing. So if we think about traffic patterns from their project, which they're proposing to have entry on Dudley Street in addition to Madison Park, entry on Dudley Street, that's going to be a huge issue. And so we came to them and said, you know, could you please look at this and perhaps flip your parking over to Washington Street, which would give the residents that have to come down off of the hill opportunity to get to where they need to be on time. The second thing I think was addressed was the facade. The facade needs to look like our neighborhood. We don't want the building to not represent going forward or looking out from the front side. And I think, Gregory, I don't think you were there, but I know that Jean and her team, Troy was there, that's who it was. We presented an idea or an option where the actual front can be the front instead of the back. It's a little confusing what I'm saying, but we want you guys to understand that that is a priority for us because we want to be very inclusive when it comes down to the gateways of Highland Park. Construction track record on parcel 10 was not good. I remember Dorothea Jones from the Roxbury Strategic Master Plan Committee addressing these, so we're definitely going to be looking at that. And she's on the PRC as well, good. Displacement strategy, it's very interesting because when we're talking about deeded restrictions on condos, I think we need to be careful when it sounds great because obviously there are people in our community, including my family, that needs to be able to stay here. But what we can't do is perpetuate generational poverty. And that's what's happening in our community. We don't have enough discretionary income or growth opportunities through home ownership or business ownership that will get us above a certain income level where we and our kids and our grandkids are not in the same state of poverty or impoverishment 20 years later. The last thing is there was a glaringly lacking community benefit. There was nothing above and beyond. And so we asked them to put together a plan where they could subsidize the retail space, increasing it by 100 square feet, and come back to the community with a real percentage of subsidy, since a lot of their projects on the retail space are about $60,000 a year.
Do you want to, you have an opportunity to, I mean, there's a combination comment and questions, so I leave it up to you if there's anything that jumps out, Jean. Or
Yeah,
Greg.
I mean, I thought it was a good conversation. This won't be the first. This is a concept. So there'll be lots of changes to the plan and the design. Traffic engineers will get involved. We'll look at traffic impacts. So this is early stage, and we're happy to keep engaging with the community as we do on any project.
Rodney, comment or question?
So if we're serious about closing the wealth gap, why is your MVE utilization number so low?
It was an understanding that it was a 35% level, MBE, so that was a question.
Do you want to talk about
In all fairness, those are some of the benchmarks that have been identified by some of our funding partners, but it's always Madison Park's intent to exceed those particular benchmarks that have been arranged by our different funding partners. But normally we like to set our baseline at 35% with the hopes that we will obviously exceed that.
And I would say on the soft cost side, the development team is overwhelmingly minority.
We have time for 2 more comments and questions. Come up here, and then we're going to come right back.
Hello, my name is Raheem Shepard. I'm a business rep with the Carpenters Union. I grew up in Mission Hill. My wife has been stationed at B2 for 14 years, so I really know this area very well. My question to you is, from past practice, you guys have used contractors that misclassify workers, the Delbrook sites, and that's a fact because I've been there. And also, when they do the 35% with the contractors that they choose, the contractors pick people up off the street, give them a broom for 2 weeks, or if it comes to as far as framing the building, they'll pick people up and you have a few people just hold the wood up. They don't develop any skills. They're just there for the duration and not even the duration of the job. And then that contractor goes on and they're forgotten about. I won't get into the Carpenters Union, but I don't appreciate that.
I've really been waiting for this particular comment, and I really appreciate you coming up, Mr. Shepard, to address that. On behalf of Madison Park, we understand that there are a number of contractors in the city as a whole who are doing questionable things. But I'm very excited to be back at Madison Park so I can stay on top of that. I'm all about patrolling those type of instances and making sure they don't happen. I am tired of people giving Madison Park a bad name just because they assume they associate us with the past relationships of different GCs who have came into Boston and did X, Y, Z. Here at Madison Park, now with Katrina back in the saddle, I am patrolling things like that, and I'm going to make sure that we will eliminate that from happening on all of our projects going forward. If it is brought to our attention, brothers like Mr. Cofield brings it to my attention, and we jump on top of it a lot sooner than later before it snowballs into something out of our control. Okay? Thank you so much.
Yeah. Come on. I made a mistake. We actually had a very patient person, come up, who's been waiting beyond this woman, so we'll have this question or comment, and then one additional comment or question.
This is something that you just brought up a little while ago about displacement, gentrification. I don't know how transparent it will be where you're building condos, and if you displace where they are living, they're not coming back because you're building condos, and if they're there. So I don't know how we're tracking them, where did they go, how are they, so on and so on. But it seems like if you build it, if you're building that there in their condos, these people aren't coming back. It's a contradiction already. Where are they? How are we going to find out? And where did you put them? Probably nowhere because you're not, something's wrong there. You're building condos. They're not going to be able to afford those condos. They're not coming back. And who knows where they went? How is that not a problem with you or an issue with you?
So this is a vacant site, so there isn't any direct displacement associated with the vacant land, right? No one's living there currently. Again, we're trying to address displacement by creating a preference so that people at risk of having to move get a preference for buying here. For our own residents at Madison Park Development Corporation, we are giving any resident that lives in our property a $50,000 down payment assistance grant. And so far, 4 residents have taken advantage of that and bought homes in Boston with that $50,000. And all that we require is that if they sell it within the first, is it 5 years? 7 years, they have to pay us back out of selling that property. But that both does 2 things. It frees up a subsidized unit for the hundreds of people on our waiting list, and it allows us to help residents whose incomes have gone up to become homeowners. Now, finding something they can still afford with that $50,000 and whatever they've saved is still a challenge, but it's a way to help help people who have grew up in this neighborhood stay in the neighborhood.
Here we have one final comment and question here.
Hi, good afternoon. This will be quick. My name is Mike Miles, and I live in the community and have been involved in development here in the area. The question, and I'm really excited to hear that the Madison Park folks, Jeannie, are going to offer condo retail space, because I think that's really an important option for ownership and equity and wealth building for business owners. So Dwayne, the question is for you, which is how will you set pricing for the condo unit, and how will that be structured?
I'm going to help him out because we haven't even thought about that yet. But I can't give you an answer. We haven't thought about how we'd price it. I don't know, Russ, do you have some thoughts on that?
No, I have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
You did.
But we're committed to making it affordable, right? Right, it's gonna get built, so, you know, and there's no debt, so.
So the question directed to me is, do we write all of these commitments, et cetera, into the quote-unquote contract? Whenever we have a development such as this, we would have a loan agreement, and we would put particular points that are important to the development. In addition, we have an affordable housing covenant, so whatever affordability discussions we have here, it's memorialized into that covenant for affordable housing, and it's bound out over time. So long way of saying, Luis, that yes, we do. So the question is, does D&D monitor the performance at the construction site regarding minority women and Boston resident participation? If that does not, and if they're not met, what does D&D do? D&D works closely with, it used to be called the Jobs and Community Service. We have a pre-construction meeting with them. We outline, they have a meeting with the developer and all their contractors or subcontractors. They review the goals, and then they meet on a, I don't know, I can't. They monitor it. I was fumbling here. How many times do they go? I'm not aware of how many times they go, but they do go, and I know for a couple of reasons. So we put funds into the development, and every time the developer, whether it's Madison Park or another, is requesting funds from D&D, we have to work with our Jobs and Community Service, and they tell us yay or nay. Yay meaning they've met their weekly utilization, they're on path to meeting their goals, so we can then release our funds, or else sometimes they say no, because their weekly utilization isn't good or their numbers aren't good. So the final part, answer to your question is what does D&D do if we hear that? We reflect that in our reviews. So for example, right now, as D&D working with the BPDA and the project review committee are evaluating applications, we have the ability to use that historic information to say, based on developer X past performance, we have to be wary. So that becomes more of an evaluation metric that we could use. So. So okay. Okay. Yeah. So this point here is that the citywide numbers are not where they should be, and there needs to be greater effort. This is what I want to do. I want to close it right now. I want to thank the school department, City Cable, for being patient with us. Saturday going past, 12:30. And I just want to remind folks that, first off, I want to thank Madison Park for their application. We don't get applicants. We put out a lot of time on their proposals. No one applies. We have sad faces. So we thank you for that. I want to remind folks that next Saturday, we'll have 2147 Washington Street and 40-50 Warren. We'll have 2 applicants per site, and we'll go through the same process. It'll be an opportunity for residents to hear, comment, and question, and it will help the project review committee and D&D and BPDA as part of our evaluation process. Thank you very much, everyone.